MusicalTalk, the UK's independent musical theatre podcast.
Good morning, good afternoon, or possibly good evening. This is David Herzog, and I am here today with a MusicalTalk mini-episode. And today we are going to be hearing from Resound Music Theatre and talking about their upcoming production of Battles Within and Without, which will be playing here in London at the St. Magnus the Martyr Church on August 1st and 2nd. Now, this is going to be a very different kind of musical theater piece, as this is going to be mostly composed of classical music, which will give it a beautiful choral and operatic feel. So for those classical music fans out there and opera fans, this will be one to catch for sure. It will be a show in 3 acts, mostly comprised of instrumental music, some choral music, and then finally, the 3rd act will be a staged performance dealing predominantly with the madrigals of Claudio Monteverdi and Judith Weir's Missa del Cid. And already the church itself set the mood for what the piece will potentially be. A beautiful, large church right here in London, right near Monument Station. I caught up with a couple of the creatives today at St. Magnus the Martyr Church, and here is what they had to say. But before we do that, here is a brief selection of the Kyrie by Judith Weir, one of the choral pieces that is sung in this show. Hello, friends. We are here today with the good folks from Resound Music Theatre, a wonderful company based up in Manchester here in merry old England. And we are here today to talk about their new production that is going on August the 1st and August the 2nd here at St. Magnus the Martyr Church in London.
My name is Jonathan Ainscoe. I've co-directed the show, and I also perform in it, playing accordion and harpsichord and singing bass.
My name's Rebecca Lee. I've co-directed the show, and in it I'm also singing soprano and playing the harpsichord.
My name's Catherine Wilde, and I am the director of the performance.
So first of all, I just want to quickly talk about who came up with Resound Music Theatre and what was its development. Jonathan, can I address that one to you first?
Certainly. So Rebecca and I studied together at the Royal Northern College of Music in Manchester, and while we were there, we were able to put on a production of a Sondheim musical called Into the Woods, and we did it using a cast of actor musicians, so actors who not only sang the parts but also played instruments to provide the backing. Mm-hmm. It went very well, and Catherine was involved in that as a designer and sort of honorary assistant director, and off the back of that we all decided we would love to keep working together. So we had an opportunity to perform a piece at the BBC Proms 2 summers ago, and we staged some cabaret songs by the American composer William Bolcom, and then it has developed from there.
And Rebecca, does this company mostly delve into classical pieces like we were just hearing earlier, or is this company's aim to delve into as many different aspects of musical theatre?
I think the company advertises itself as a music theatre company, so therefore we are interested not specifically within what would be traditionally called musical theatre, or what would be classified as opera or music theatre.
Sure.
We like a like to cross a range of genres in the work that we do. We do have, we all are classically trained musicians and singers, and therefore we are interested in classical music and new stagings and innovative stagings of those particular pieces. But at the same time, as Jonathan mentioned, we are also very interested in any type of sort of theatre that can have a new perspective brought to it through the work and the ideas that we can bring to it together.
And that brings us to the piece that you are bringing here to St. Magnus the Martyr, which is Battles Within and Without, correct? And this is going to be a very different type of musical theater piece because it's going to incorporate lots of brilliant things like you were saying to me just earlier, choral music, instrumental music, combining and then adding with staging at some point as well, and we're going to get into that in just a little bit. But Catherine, could you tell me a little bit about the history of this particular piece and how it came to be, the ideas that went into it?
Yes, certainly. I mean, we started, Jonathan mentioned the piece we did at the Proms, staging William Balcomb's cabaret music. And that kind of sparked an interest in us in staging music that's not traditionally staged and ways of going about that. And we also wanted to come up with a piece. Rebecca actually approached us with this piece by Judith Weir, Mr. Del Cid, which we listened to and kind of thought, wow, that's so inherently dramatic. And the story that it tells about El Cid and the story of the siege and everything that goes on, we thought, actually, this does lend itself to a dramatic staging.
Right.
So we then went to kind of think about, well, what could we pair with that? So we went for Monteverdi, and this idea that the Monteverdi explores kind of lots of inward relationships and inner turmoil and inner things that are going inside people's hearts and that kind of thing. And then the contrast is therefore the outward battle on the battlefield, as it were, in the story of El Cid. So that's how it kind of came about.
And of course, I would say for most of our viewers, I think all aspects of this performance will probably be of interest to everybody, especially if people like classical music, if people have been classically trained, if they're fans of opera, if they're fans of sacred music, madrigals, all that kind of thing. And I'm sure they will be particularly keen to see the third part of this. Now, before we go into that, you were explaining to me before we started this interview that this will be in 3 different acts, basically. Jonathan, could you explain that to us?
Yes, absolutely. So the first section is some choral music by Gesualdo, James Macmillan, and Howells, and that's all linked around sort of death, soldiers returning from war, lots of things like that sort of feed in to the main themes, and we'll present that just sort of like a choral concert in essence, so standing and singing it from music. Then the second section of the show is the Monteverdi madrigals, which, as Catherine said, explore sort of relationships but using imagery from the battlefield. And we're doing 5, and we sort of stage them as 5 vignettes or short scenes, using a variety of different voices. And because our incredibly talented cast are not only singers, they're also excellent instrumentalists, the madrigals that they don't sing in, they accompany on their instruments. And then the third section is the Missa del Cid by Judith Weir, which is an unaccompanied choral work for 10 voices. And we stage that in a sort of physical theatre way, lots of movement, lots of ensemble action. And there's also a film going on behind it to sort of clarify some of the settings.
So some multimedia going on in there as well.
Absolutely, yes. There's some soundscapes as well, actually, some pre-recorded sound in between some of the pieces to join them up thematically and things.
The fascinating thing about this particular project to me is not only the material that's used in it. We've already talked about some of the different musical elements that are going to be in it, the different pieces, the different authors, the different styles, but I'm also very keen about the space that this is being performed in. We're at St. Magnus the Martyr Church, which is right down the road from Monument Station, and quite a few non-musical theater pieces certainly are, performed constantly here in town in church or cathedral settings. Not so much musical theater. So, Rebecca, would you be able to tell me a little bit about the staging? Feel free to sort of gesture anywhere in this space. I know nobody will see it, but just to kind of give us an idea of what can be expected when you're sitting from the perspective of the audience.
Well, I don't know whether you'll pick this up from the recording from this interview, but one of the things that's very important to us about this space is that the acoustic in here is absolutely tremendous.
Absolutely.
So from an audio perspective, this is one of the reasons why we are using this space. It is also an incredibly beautiful church with all sorts of opportunities for staging. We are using the central part of it for space in which we'll be moving physically around. We are using projected images, which will be in front of the sanctuary from here, and Jonathan mentioned that we are using singer instrumentalists, so there will also be a harpsichord around sort of this area, and instrumentalists will be on either sides of the church. So using the space allowing the church to retain its element of what it is, which is an incredibly beautiful place, and also incorporating our presence in there, making it known.
That's wonderful, and it definitely is a beautiful, beautiful church. I mean, as soon as I walked in just a few minutes ago, the ambiance already hit me. Now, is this a Catholic church or a Church of England space? Do you know?
It's an Anglo-Catholic church.
Anglican, okay.
One of the things that's quite interesting about this space is that St Magnus himself was a warrior.
Okay.
So that feeds quite nicely into the piece as well. And we can see him here at the side, which perhaps the audience might pick up on during the evening.
Yeah, they'll be able to see it when they come, absolutely.
Just to add something else to that as well, I think what's wonderful about performing it in a church is sort of the religious resonances within the piece. So in a lot of the Monteverdis, there's a lot of talk about sort of struggling against heaven and against the gods, in this sense that people are they're given a destiny in terms of their love and they have to sort of fight against it.
Okay,
and then in the Missa del Cid, obviously that's all to a certain extent about religious warfare, which is very interesting, and it ends with a stunningly beautiful sort of prayer for peace to the Agnus Dei setting. So to perform that sort of in front of an altar is very, the resonances are very exciting, and I think very poignant as well.
We are actually performing all 6 movements of a Mass, which is what the piece is made up of. So again, it's another poignant. Yeah,
it's the Mass text sort of interwoven with the story of the Cid, this warrior.
And Catherine, what can you tell me more than about, stylistically, about the music? How does it fit in with the writing and the plot line of the story? And how dramatically does it speak to an audience?
With the Missa del Cid. Stylistically, Judith Weir wrote this piece in the 1980s, am I right in saying that? It was commissioned for a BBC documentary originally. And it's Judith Weir in its way that it feels very contemporary in terms of the musical style.
But yet also remains quite tonal throughout.
Definitely,
So which does make it attractive to audiences, I think, because it is also very pleasant to listen to, despite being quite contemporary.
Yeah, certainly. There's moments of just absolute glorious, kind of the cadences and the moments, particularly when coming to the end of each setting, so that Amen at the end of each movement of the Mass sound really beautiful. In terms of the staging of it, I think the challenge is that and Rebecca and Jonathan are singing in this as well, and will know the challenges of it musically. It is difficult. It's written for 10 solo voices, and definitely not 10 solo voices that are also dealing with various gestures and movements.
Right, exactly,
bits of staging to be moving around. So what we've tried to do is think how we can have a very stylized way of moving in unison at certain moments and using particular gestures to highlight what's going on in the action. And what's really interesting about it is that the characters, there isn't one, as in a traditional opera, you wouldn't have a particular, you would have a character playing a particular role, and there would be one performer that is allotted to that character, whereas in this it's spread between the 10 voices, and it's like a mosaic of the different parts going through it. So we couldn't assign, for example, an El Cid at any particular moment. But what we can do is this amazing, I think it looks visually really strong to have everyone moving gesturally in unison at certain moments.
Sure. So visually and audibly as well, I'd imagine it seems like it might have the feel of almost like an ancient Greek chorus kind of coming to life in a very appropriate space as well, because, of course, in ancient Greece and ancient Rome, they would have been, the theaters that they were performing in would have been considered sacred places, places of the gods. And so, one can draw obvious parallels for them. So, Jonathan, explain to us, for those of us who don't know, what goes into El Cid, and also explain to us Monteverdi and his works and the storylines that we will be seeing during this show.
So if I start with the Monteverdi madrigals, as they come first in this staging. So in these, we're doing 5 madrigals by Monteverdi in different combinations of voices, and in that, the 10 performers are playing 10 individuals whose characters and stories sort of intertwine. So the first madrigal is just for solo voice, and it's about a woman who is in love with a man who is with another woman, so has left her for someone else. In the second madrigal, 2 women who have both lost their lovers in different ways sing about how they're going to armour their heart so that they can continue living even though their love has gone from them. In the third madrigal, we see 3 soldiers. 2 of them are pining for their loves at home, and the other one is trying to encourage them to resist love and just enjoy the fight. In the fourth madrigal, which is called The Lament of the Nymph, a stunningly beautiful piece, it's about another abandoned and betrayed woman, and she's just wandering around weeping for her lost loves, and three men observe her and comment on it. Then the final madrigal is sort of summarises the themes of the piece sung by six voices and sort of is a comment on the dual sort of pain and beauty of love at the same time.
Okay.
So then we go from that into the Missa del Cid, which is the story of this great warrior, the Cid, who went to Spain to try and conquer it. And as the story goes along, he arrives, he besieges the city of Valencia. We see his soldiers training. We see his wife praying for his safe return. He has a vision where the angel Gabriel comes and commands him to continue riding out. There's a moment where another cleric comes to bless the crusade. And then finally we sort of hear the total of the dead, and it ends with a meditation on, well, a prayer for peace in a war-torn world.
Quickly, before we close, we just want to remind people where they can come and see this piece, when, what times, how to get tickets, and all that. So, Rebecca, can you please remind us of all that information?
Battles Within and Without is being performed on the 1st and 2nd of August, next Thursday and Friday, at the Church of St Magnus the Martyr in London at 8 p.m. And tickets can be purchased by emailing Rebecca at resoundmusictheatre.co.uk or on the door, priced at £10.
Excellent, wonderful. And also, lastly, before we go, Catherine, what are the plans for this show after you leave London?
Well, we'll be performing it 2 days later in Kendal as part of the Lake District Summer Music Festival.
And where is that at in Kendal?
In Kendal, it's at the Box Theatre.
Okay.
And so that's at 8 p.m. It will be the Sunday, 4th of August.
Perfect. And where can they get information about tickets for that, just in case they aren't able to make it?
So you can visit the Resound website.
Okay.
We've got all the information on there. So that's www.resoundmusictheatre.co.uk. On there we have the information and also a link to the Lake District Summer Music Festival page, where they've got information about their box office. And they're also available on www.tickets.com to buy.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time today, guys. I really appreciate it, and look forward to great things for this company to come.
This Musical Talk mini-episode presented by David Herzog and edited by Thos Ribbits. Copyright Musical Talk 2013, except for the songs and music, where the copyright persists with the creators.